Today's my guest is an exceptional woman, an expert in cybersecurity, living in Singapore and running a consulting company there, but also working as an expert for many organizations. Today, you represent Marsh, yes? Am I right?
Yes, hi Magdalena. Yes, indeed. I'm leading actually cyber advisory for Marsh Asia. So indeed, here I am. And thank you very much for the invite.
Great, Magda. So I want to really get into the main topic of the conversation and talk about, what is the current situation of the cybersecurity issues in this C-level agenda. So my first question is cybersecurity on the top of the C-suite agenda these days?
It is a very relevant question. Now, when we look at the statistics, it obviously shows that cyber risk is within the top 5 risks for enterprise business stakeholders. Now, let's be realistic and look a little bit more of how it is practically, especially within Asia. I would say business stakeholders or in general boards of directors do not still have yet the maturity in this part of the world to understand the dependability of companies towards technology. And of course, when we talk about dependence on technology, we are talking about technological risks or cyber risk. With the increase of the pandemic, we see even an increase, a tremendous increase of cyber risk. And therefore, definitely some of them are looking to the matter a little bit differently and are trying to ask themselves the right questions. Are we prepared? Are we actually taking into consideration the right cyber risks? Do we have the right visibility? Or are we just still considering it as an IT problem?
So my question is, what are the main challenges the CISOs face when they go and discuss cybersecurity with the board of directors?
I love this question, Magdalena. Indeed, there is a very big challenge when it comes to security professionals when they're discussing cybersecurity with business stakeholders. The first major challenge is the fact that they do actually consider or discuss technical terms with the business stakeholders, including the board of directors. I mean, if we talk about ransomware or DDoS attack, that doesn't mean anything to someone who's not in cybersecurity. That just make them think that is an IT problem. And this is the first challenge that is extremely, I would say, big and requires a lot of training and consideration from the security professionals. We do not talk about cybersecurity with threats. We talk around cybersecurity to business stakeholders with business cyber risks, which is different. Now, when we talk about business cyber risk, that means that we understand the different terminologies and we go beyond just technical aspects. We understand how business functions, what is the priority, and how to actually address or even identify the related cyber risk. So again, when we talk about a ransomware or a malware attack, we won't disclose that details to the board of directors, but we rather talk about business interruption, business disruption due to a malware attack, and they are not interested into the details. Now, the second challenge that I do believe is as well very important is the fact that traditionally and still now we are using qualitative methods to describe cyber risk. For example, we use colors like red, yellow, green, medium, low to describe a cyber risk. And those colors will as well, commonly be used to say, okay, it's a low, it's a medium, it's a critical risk, but doesn't mean anything for the board of directors. In my opinion, it doesn't. It actually is too qualitative and therefore it is subjective. Today, it's not enough. If we would like to have a proper discussion with the board of directors about cyber risks, first is to understand the point around not using technical terms. And second is to go away from the traditional qualitative frameworks and target rather priorities, or objectives of the business, basically aligning our cyber topic and cyber discussions to the business strategy and the business goals. And in that way, we would actually circumvent the second challenge. But I'm still not giving here the answer to of how exactly to do it. But I do believe those two challenges are the main and the biggest one for security professionals. They don't align with the business and they forget the priorities of the business stakeholders.
When I talk to cybersecurity experts, specialists, they are very often concerned and worried that when they talk to the C-suite, they very often get objections. Why does cybersecurity project cost so much? Do we really need it? Do we have to invest more in that space? So they are worried that the board of directors doesn't understand the value of cybersecurity. What would be your recommendation? How to create the vision for board of directors that cybersecurity is a critical factor for the business.
I do think that the challenges that I have mentioned are the reason why CISOs are unable to get the right investment in cybersecurity and they do not approach the topic from the right perspective. They should approach the topic from the perspective of what is the likelihood that the organization will experience a material cyber event in the next 12 months that eventually might cost more than 1 million. So, where I'm going to is basically moving out from technical qualitative description of cyber risk to quantitative frameworks, which allow you to have a very clear visibility of financial loss following a cyber event. When you know how much a cyber event might eventually lead in terms of losses, then you are able to argument why you need a certain investment. Now, this is where cybersecurity professionals still not that comfortable with, in my view, or the industry in general is not that mature. And the reason being is because there is a very big, I would say, disconnect between security and business. So again, if we combine both, we will be able to quantify and understand the impact and the likelihood of a cyber event leading to a materialization of a cyber risk. For example, business interruption due to ransomware attack, it is a business risk. The business does not want to be interrupted. Now, of course, when we're talking about that, what does it really mean for the business? We're not talking about the ransomware. That's one point. We are not talking only about investigation recovery. We are talking about loss of revenue, overtime, legal costs, communication costs, etc. And the list goes very long. And I do think that that part of impact quantification is not yet very well adopted by security professionals. And therefore, in their talk or in their presentations to the board, they lack that financial figures and the right mathematical calculations behind it, so they have the right arguments. Now, the other point when we talk about cyber risk, of course, we're talking about impact and likelihood. What is the likelihood? Again, as I mentioned at the beginning, we might have an event that happens once a year, but what if it happens 2 or 3 times? What about events like, and I'm giving an example, a pandemic that doesn't happen every year, but when it happens, it disrupts the business tremendously. Cyber events might be the same. So as a CISO who is actually in charge of managing cyber risk for an organization, there is really an important factor that requires a proper visibility of the financial losses due to a cyber event and taking that to the board in alignment with their risk appetite. When they have that visibility, they will be able to argument any budget that they want because it's just as simple as that. It will show money, and money means business profit, and therefore it is the board that will accept or decide to mitigate or terminate the risk or even transfer it to cyber insurance. There are several ways of dealing with cyber risk, but the main I would say a problem or challenge, obstacle that cybersecurity are having to get the right investment in cyber is the lack of financial values or quantification when it comes to cyber risks?
I think that's very relevant, and that's a problem when we are thinking about a lot of investments in the company. Kind of, up on the top of my mind, there is a question, is there a good framework to present this, the business consequences and potential business outcomes when we are thinking about implementing cybersecurity, this kind of return on investment on cybersecurity. Do you use any framework, or would you recommend a framework to build such a business case for the board of directors?
There is definitely a framework called FAIR that is used for risk quantification, and this is one of the, I would say, rare frameworks that uses the same aspect: frequency, loss, magnitude. However, I do use my own, and with Marsh, we have developed as well proprietary models that help to quantify that. The
Mhm.
reason being is because every company has a different level of maturity. So if you give a certain framework that requires a lot of complexity, that means that you already have a strong security understanding and the business understanding, and you can put them together. When it comes to a company that doesn't have that maturity, you need basically to a little bit hold hands and go slowly, slowly. And impact quantification can be done without even using any advanced framework. I mean, you can start by understanding how much will cost to your business if the business doesn't function. And I think one day in the life of a CEO could be a very good exercise for CISOs because they are completely, in my view, disconnected from the business. So before using any framework, applying any quantification, think outside of your box and understand the priorities and the impact. Like if you are running a business, you cannot afford not to be in business for a week, right? That perhaps is your business risk appetite. Now think about it from an organizational point of view. And then you will be able to report to the board. As simple as that.